Rating repairs and mods I've done on my BMW by difficulty. Now, I am not a pro mechanic of any sort. I'm really honestly a beginner, but I've done a fair share of maintenance and repairs, as well as some bolt-ons. Now, the first thing I've done was a repair. It was my aluminum charge pipe because my plastic one exploded. I'd say its actual difficulty was about 2 out of 10, but for me, the charge pipe barely fit onto the throttle body because of how it came from the factory or whatever. So it took me like 3 hours of hitting it against the throttle body. Which brings me to the next one, which was the intercooler. It's an ARM 5-inch intercooler, and it was honestly pretty difficult for me. I'd say it was about a 4 or 5 out of 10 in difficulty. But now after having to uninstall and install it multiple times, I drop it down to like a 3 out of 10. Now the next thing I did was the alternator. Now at first I thought the alternator would be easy since, it's right on top of the engine. But I had to lift the intake manifold. And since I wasn't too skilled at the time, it was very hard for me to do it with the oil filter housing in the way. So I also took that off. And it was the absolute peak of winter, so that job was horrible. I'd rate it a 7 out of 10 in difficulty. Now after that, I've done my oil cooler thermostat housing and the oil filter housing, both the gaskets and the parts. And in all honesty, they were pretty easy jobs. I'd give them a 3 out of 10. And the next job I did was the water pump and the thermostat. It was very messy jobs. They were absolutely not fun at all. But in terms of difficulty, I'd say 4 out of 10. There's a lot of tight spaces you got to fit your fingers and hands through. So I see why other people struggle with it. But for me, it wasn't too difficult. After that, I did do my radiator. And it was pretty easy in my opinion. I rated a 3 out of 10. I also did the coolant expansion tank. That was like a 1 out of 10. It was super duper easy. And then ignition coils and spark plugs, also pretty easy, a 2 out of 10 maybe. But next were the downpipes. Now these weren't too difficult, but it was frustrating and it is a tight space, so I'd give it a 5 out of 10. It wasn't as bad as the alternator. And pretty soon I'm going to be removing every single bolt-on from this car. Maybe not all of them, but almost all of them because I have some projects planned for it.